Christian Parenting.
When my family decided to leave the public school system, well, I should preface it and say, when my husband and I decided to take our kids from the school system, I was a little bit nervous. Not that we needed their permission or them to be on board with it, but I wanted them to love homeschooling. I had fallen in love with the idea of it, and I knew what could be the possibilities ahead of us. And so when I began looking at curriculum, I was like, okay, I've got to win them over. I want them to see that it is good, that we are together as a family. My kids, they were most excited about school to go and see their friends. And so I was pulling them away from that. I was like, okay, I have to capture them with the time that we are spending together, and they will start to see the benefit and the fruit of it. One way that I did that was being very specific and targeted when it came to a couple of subjects. Science. My kids loved science. They loved the world. They loved learning about God's creation. And so I was like, I got to find a good science curriculum. And the Lord definitely blessed us. We found Apologia at that time, and it was phenomenal. That very first year, we did their zoology course, and my kids loved it. We talked about all kinds of things with animals, and guess what? I learned a lot too. As the years went on, we continued to do Apologia Science, and we went on to add their worldview curriculum. We went through that entire thing. And guess what? Since that time, Apologia has added even more subjects, and their subjects can range from elementary, I think even preschool, but elementary, middle, and high school resources. And they even now have some courses online that you can take, which I absolutely love when companies start to recognize this is something that would be able to serve more people and begin to offer it. Apologia is a resource that comes with a biblical worldview. Amen to that. I knew when it came to the science, I didn't want anything that was going to confuse their minds. Now, yes, we've gone on to study evolution and other ideas and theories so that my kids would know, and when they're exposed to it, they would be able to debunk things. But Apologia really gave them this great foundation. If right now you are looking for some curriculum, you're missing some things, there's some holes and some gaps, or you're just looking to provide them with a biblical worldview and support an amazing company, I would highly recommend you go over and check out Apologia at apologia.com. The link is also going to be in the show notes for you. I promise that you will not be disappointed. Currently, they do have a summer sale going on, so make sure you go ahead and check that out. And I also want to thank Apologia for being a sponsor and coming alongside Little by Little Homeschool Conference. We're really excited about the conference next month and just so blessed and so thankful for Apologia to sponsor us as we provide an amazing day for homeschool moms. If you're interested in the conference, you can go to littlebylittlehomeschool.com/conference. And then on that page, there is also a link to Apologia. Thank you again to Apologia, and I'm just going to say it again. I highly recommend going over and checking out Apologia. You will not be disappointed. And now let's get into today's topic. We're going to discuss, do you have the capacity that is needed to homeschool? Let's find out. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast. I am Leigh Nguyen, and so glad that you are here. I am a homeschool mom. I guess maybe I should add former homeschool mom, but I believe that once a homeschool mom, you're always a homeschool mom. We graduated our youngest from homeschool back in the spring. He was definitely the full test of the homeschool because he was the one that we homeschooled all the way through. You heard me mention at the beginning that we had two kids that were in public school. They went from the middle one was in kindergarten and the older one went through second grade and then pulled them home. So our first year of homeschool, I had a third grader, a first grader, and then a preschooler rolling around and causing a little bit of ruckus, right? That's how it goes. And so the youngest has gone all the way through and he is 18 and graduated and doing some really pretty amazing things. They all are. And so I keep sharing, even though I'm not necessarily homeschooling, because I just believe in it so much. And I'm so glad that you're here for this episode. My goal for this episode here is to be a little bit shorter and sweeter. If you listened to Monday's episode, I highly recommend. If you did not, it was a little bit on the longer side. So I'm trying to balance it out today. Plus, this one, I just kind of have a couple of little short points that I want to make. And then we're just going to wrap it up in a bow and head on out for the day. So the short answer of, do you have the capacity needed to homeschool? Here's my answer. Maybe, maybe not. I know, that's not very helpful, is it? All right, let's kind of take that apart a little bit. Because maybe you do have the capacity to homeschool, but maybe you are homeschooling in a way that you do not have the capacity to do so. Again, if you did not listen to Monday's episode about the overhaul, then you definitely need to tack that along on this one. We have to admit as homeschool moms that we are all different. And guess what? That is okay. God has given us individual personalities that can handle different levels of busyness and or chaos. And that is okay. And you can handle that different levels of busyness and or chaos as long as you are not willfully reducing your capacity. What do I mean by that? If you have the capacity to handle more and you are willfully reducing that, not that you are protecting your adding margin and putting up boundaries, not that. But if it means that you are being lazy, and then I don't think that we are necessarily leaning into what God has for us. So let me just let's say it a different way. We can all handle different levels of busyness and chaos, and some of us can handle a lot more, and some of us can handle just a tiny little bit. I think this also depends upon not just our personality, but a season of life and what exactly is that busyness or chaos. If you can handle the busyness and chaos of, say, maybe 5 kids under the age of, say, 7, and you're used to that. You have, again, the oldest is 7 and you have 5 kids and you're like, okay, I can handle that busyness and chaos. But if I was to throw you into maybe someone else's busyness and chaos and they have maybe 10 to 18-year-olds and they're involved in all kinds of activities and sports and stuff at church and everything, that might be a level that you can't handle. Even though you can handle busyness and chaos, it's just not where you are in that season of life right now. And that's okay. I think any of us would have a hard time just jumping into another mom's life. But as long as you are not willfully reducing your capacity and just being lazy. So what does lazy look like? Lazy looks like not trying with your homeschool, not spending the time in getting the curriculum and the resources. And this can be done on a small budget. We can very easily say, well, I only have a budget of a couple $100, so we're not really going to do much. You can do a lot with maybe just a couple of $100. There is an episode about a budget, so I'd encourage you to listen to that one. But you can say, oh, my kids don't really listen to me. Well, that's a behavior problem. There's always excuses we can come up with for things, and that is just being lazy about it. And I don't want you to be lazy because the Bible has some things to say about sluggards, and I don't want you to be labeled a sluggard, okay? So I think as long as you are being intentional, you are trying, you are doing your best, and you're leaning into the season God has for you, you're not being lazy. So don't worry about that. We know as women when we are being lazy. I know for myself in the evening when I'm just being lazy, when there's a couple of things that if I got those done, I would set myself and my family up much better for the next day. But I'm just sitting around doom scrolling. That is being lazy. That is not what I'm called to do right then. I'm called to get myself up off the couch and go do the things that I need to do. This doesn't mean that I'm putting off bedtime till later and everything to get things done, but it just is not being lazy, is doing what I need to. And I do have the capacity to get a couple of things done in the evening after maybe dinner's all wrapped up and everything's cleaned up and I've gone outside. I've tried to take a walk after dinner, just like a quick, maybe 1 mile, 15 minute or so walk, come home. And if it needs it, I'll water the garden and then get a couple of things done instead of sitting and scrolling. I can do so much more better things with my time. But I think when it comes to us admitting that, we're all different, recognizing that God gives us individual personalities and there's different levels of busyness and chaos we can handle, it is best to be honest with yourself. Don't look at the mom who seems to have a higher capacity than you, the mom that maybe is in a different season of life, or maybe the mom that literally is in the same season of life. You have the same exact amount of kids and life seems to be somewhat the same, but she seems to have more capacity. That's okay. You say, I just need more quietness in my day. She can handle the loud and crazy and the ruckus. Well, that's her personality. That's the environment and the family culture that she's created. And if she's thriving, guess what? Leave her alone and don't compare yourself to her. If you're thriving in the way that you are, that's great. Then stay in that. But we have to be honest with ourselves and not compare ourselves to somebody else. And like you, I have friends of variety different personalities. So let's talk about homeschool moms. I have some friends who have very structured days. They have homeschool goals and they meet those homeschool goals. And they have predictability to their homeschool, to their rhythm, to their life. And then I have other friends who have some goals, hopefully they meet them, and they appear to fly by the seat of their pants. Guess what? Both of those two different types of friends and everybody in between, they and their children are all thriving. Isn't that amazing? That means it's okay to take a look at what capacity do you have? What is best for your days? Is it better to have structured days? Is it better to be a little bit, willy-nilly and a little bit of whatever comes up and fly by the seat of your pants? As long as you guys are thriving. And again, going back to Monday's episode, taking that time, making sure you have margin for connection and discipleship of your kids. But balancing that with not allowing that busyness and chaos to be an excuse. We can very easily say, oh, we just have so much going on, or, oh, this and that, and you're not getting to the homeschool curriculum that you purchased, that you know is going to be a really good resource and a really good foundation for your kids. You're not getting to the education that you want to do and the things that you know that you need to do. And you're saying that busyness and that chaos is what is keeping you from doing that. No. You got your priorities mixed up. Let's get those priorities and understand that you can have structured days if that's what you're bent towards, or you could have more unstructured days if that's what your bent is towards. You might have the capacity to have very structured days. You might have the capacity to have less structured days. Lean into how God has created you, but also not allowing either end of those to be like, well, this is the way that I have to do it. Maybe you have kids that want something a little bit more unstructured and you are just drilling into their head and you're dividing your relationship. Then let's make some adjustments. It's when we think that we can handle, so here's the problem. It's when we think that we can handle more than we can at the time that we get into trouble with our capacity. What this typically leads to is emotional breakdowns. It leads to anger. It leads to impatience. It leads to the opposite of the fruit of the Spirit. When you say, oh, I've got the capacity for my kids all to be in different sports. You have, let's say, 5 kids, and they're all in different sports at the same exact time, and we're going to volunteer at church, and we are going to do a very rigorous homeschool academic, and I've got kids taking classes online, and they're volunteering here, and all of this is going on, and you think that you can handle that, but you really aren't a person that can handle it. You don't have extra help. It's just you. You can't be in 5 different places for all of your kids at the same exact time. And what that leads to is emotional breakdowns. It leads to impatience. It leads to anger. It leads to relationships that are not very good. And it leads you to behave in a way that is not honoring and glorifying God. And so we're going to go back to the beginning when I said to be honest with yourself. Sometimes we can find ourselves in these situations where we have committed to too much. And that is when you need to stop, put the brakes on, and make some adjustments. Some people might not be very happy about those adjustments, meaning your kids or your husband or other people, maybe coaches or places you're volunteering with or church leadership or something, but maybe you just need to put some boundaries on those. So admit to yourself what you do have the capacity to do right now for this homeschool year. And I want to end with this. I want to encourage you to take inventory of your life right now. This homeschool year, this season, how old you are right now, how old your kids are, everything that you have going on in life, and ask yourself, am I adding things for the sake of adding them? Am I adding them because it makes us look better, that all of my kids take musical lessons even though none of them are really interested in it, or I'm forcing some of them to do it and they absolutely hate it? I'm going to raise my hands right here. And I tried forcing one and found out fairly quickly, this is not worth it. I was like, that is not worth paying money for. I want to pay somebody for this child to be miserable. I'll continue paying for and bringing the one who is enjoying the piano lessons, and we're not going to do the other one anymore. But are you adding things for the sake of just adding them so that maybe you can have your own really great homeschool mom resume? Are you adding things to avoid the foundation of what you should be doing? Are you adding too many things, too many volunteer things, too many things outside of the home when you're not doing that foundational core? Maybe you're skipping Bible time. Maybe your kids aren't getting math lessons very often. Maybe your kids aren't working on their language arts. That right there, those are the foundation. And if you're not getting those and you're avoiding them and you're running and doing this and doing that, I would suggest going back to that foundation. So take inventory of your life right now. Are you adding things just for the sake of adding them or to avoid the foundation you should be doing? So my short answer of, do you have the capacity needed to homeschool? Yes, we all have the capacity to homeschool. Do we all have the capacity to homeschool like somebody else's? Not necessarily. We should be recognizing what our capacity actually is. And I would encourage you, this was just my own personal experience, is to make sure I am filling up to that capacity. Oftentimes when there's too much downtime, and when I'm not saying not to have downtime, to have rest time, but if I have added too much margin, then I get myself, we'll say, into a little bit of trouble. It just means I'm wasting my time, and I'm not doing things that are profitable for my time. So lean into your capacity right now in this season. Don't compare. And I'm sure that your homeschool year is going to be a really good one. And I said this episode was going to be shorter than the last one. I try to keep them shorter, but I just always have so much to say. And I thank you for listening. Before we do close, I want to encourage you, as you are looking for resources for this homeschool year, maybe to fill in some of those gaps, or maybe you're just saying some of this stuff just is not working. I would encourage you to go over to apologia.com. And the subjects that they do offer are foreign language, government, history, Bible, literature and arts, math, science, and worldview. And we did a lot of their science and all of their worldview that they had available at that time, and highly recommend them. So I thank Apologia not only for sponsoring the conference, but for also putting out just really great quality curriculum, and from a trusted source that we know is seeking to honor and glorify God. Amen and amen. That is what we need to do. Let's support companies and curriculum publishers that are creating ones that are in line with our biblical worldview, and let's give our kids that solid foundation so that they can see history and government and science from a biblical worldview. You can go to apologia.com, and conference information is at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/conference. Have a great day, friend.